And next week, we kind of kick off finally big news that people have been dying for. Chris, what is your expectation for the 17th?
So the job action trailer, for those of us that have watched the last cycle, covered the last cycle, going back and we were watching some of the videos, that's what came up is we wanted to watch some videos from right before Shadowbringer dropped, talking about expectations, watched the video from kind of covering the media tour. And it was pre-media tour, so it was like a footage of okay, here's what the expectations are. The job action trailer has been requested. It was requested at the February event. Yeah, but when's the job action trailer? And in May, when's the job action trailer? Now, this is what we've been waiting for. So I think the job action trailer is a big one. I do have questions about things that may not be answered because they're saved for 6.1, 6.2, so they're off in the future. So Ishgard housing. Island Sanctuary, are we getting another deep dungeon? What are the PvP changes? I don't know that any of those will be answered this weekend. I think the big one is the job changes. The downside of announcing this at all is that while it generates a ton of hype, and I get why they do it, the reason they wait this late is because we are roughly 12 days out from everybody deciding that their job is now trash and the world is burning down. So because what's going to happen is there's going to be changes, and this is coming with the stat squish. So if they show damage numbers like flying text, people are going to be like, oh no, my job's been ruined and it's all trash. But we don't have context. We don't see the abilities yet. That was something that came out of the media tour, which was pre-job trailer last time. So the order's out of order, and we don't know what the content looks like, right? If you buff the amount of healing, people are like, oh, I'm going to have all this spare time to DPS. Well, what if the amount of damage coming out goes up? So you just need all that extra healing. So we're missing the other piece of the puzzle. So it's exciting. I think the job changes is the big marquee item. I would love to see more explanation into what are more systematic changes. So is there going to be something like a tank stance or like a crafting and gathering overhaul? How does this work within healing? What is the general idea for the battle system? I think are more the questions I would love to see this kind of address.
Meoni?
I would agree for the most part. I think that it's going to be 3 hours of talking about job changes and a little bit of battle changes. That's my predictions. I mean, everyone's predicting that at this point. The job action trailer is going to be interesting, but I do agree it's going to be taken out of context. People will see a flashy ability with something that says 37k on it, and they'll be like, "Whoa, is that an off global? What's this?" And then people have already speculated from the last teaser trailer we had, the benchmark, sorry, where people were like, "Whoa, what's that paladin ability? What's that? And what's this? And that looks overpowered." It's how can you even say that's overpowered? Don't you see it as a spell?
It's shiny.
It's shiny. It's well, that could be anything, couldn't it? The new red mage ability with the lightning. That looks cool. But, I don't know. There's so many things that, like you say, are going to stir the pot. And I think a lot of people are going to throw their job stone out of the pram, so to speak, and be like, I don't want to play Red Mage anymore. Or what have they done to Bard? They put songs back on it. And secretly I'll be going, yes, songs. Yes, less homogenization.
Yes.
That's what I would like to see, if I can say what I would like to see from these jobs.
Go for it.
Yes, I would like to see Bard have spells back that do things to finalize where Bard fits in between. Is it a damage dealer? Is it a buff person? Is it more like a dancer? Make a decision, Square Enix. Either give us full-on DPS with a Bard and get rid of those weird things, right? Or give us back the spells that people want, like the songs, and let them do something, and let them buff the party like dancer, and then make them side by side. Because at the minute, Bard doesn't really fit in. It doesn't fit in. Machinist is always taken over Bard, from what I can see, for the most part, at the end game at least. I don't know. There's bits and pieces I want to be answered. Warrior, for example. Okay, warriors need love in Endwalker. What happened to Warrior in Shadowbringers? I miss Stormblood Warrior, start of Stormblood. There are so many things I would like to see changed, but will I see any of them? Probably not. No. All we know is for a certain that Black Mage will not be changed. that's the only
Black
certainty
Mage
out of this.
Black Mage has always been just like, yep, that's Yoshi Peace main. We know.
Yeah,
That's a good
stands
bet that
there,
you're gonna have fun with that
damage,
one.
That's it.
Now, Muna in
Yeah.
chat says Summoner and Scholar segments are gonna be huge.
Yes.
Could be, yeah.
What do you think
That
about
could
the state? Well, let's talk about Summoner Scholar because I'm curious to your Summoner like thoughts of what you'd like to see, and then let's pivot that into healers. The like, what do we think is going to happen with 4 healers in this case this time? Start with Summoner Scholar. What do you think?
I think Summoner, I would like to see them do big DPS. I want to see them massively buffed. I want them to have, I would like them to have different glamours for their pet. I want to see just more focus on big numbers. I don't like the way that Summoner is kind of being diluted. That's really the only sort of opinions I have on that. But Scholar, that needs some huge love. I hate Scholar with a passion. I think it's the most homogenized piece of crap I've ever played in my life. I can't stand content with it, and it feels like every time I heal as a Scholar, I'm panicking because nothing's doing anything. Like, wait, this feels like I'm just like casting a thin like bit of like cellophane over the person who's been damaged rather than actually healing them. And I come from playing like White Mage as a main for the most part, and I like to see the big actual heals, and it feels still like the pets are too homogenized. I don't like the idea that Celine and Eos don't really do anything different. That needs to be changed, in my opinion.
Only one matches my glam.
I don't like the idea of going, it's personal choice. I like, well, why don't we use both and then include it in the rotation like we do with Phoenix and Bahamut? Why aren't healers using both fairies and put them on a cooldown?
Yeah, I would love that. I think that's one of the things that when we look at the changes that happened to Summoner Scholar in Endwalker have been detrimental to me because I used to main Summoner. Like that's what I played. And then it got to the point where it's like, wow, why am I playing this? Like it's so much better to play Black Mage or a Red Mage. Like if I want the res, like Red Mage is, it feels way more fun. When Summoner lost, I think a lot of its identity, and it ended up feeling like I was just like, I spent 2 months actually building the controller guide for Summoner. I got it to where I was like, okay, this is passable. Like this is something but it took 2 months because I was like, this is just not working. Like this is not coming together. Like there's just like, why is this one button only used after triggering this other button? Like we just need to see some like skill evolutions that are a part of like logical input. And I was like, I would just change. Like it was like you have Summon Bahamut and then you have Enkindle Bahamut. Like you can't Enkindle Bahamut unless he's summoned. Like why is that 2 buttons?
Make it one bar. Yeah, make it one button, sorry, on your bar. Yeah, they need to, especially for people on controller as well. I think there are certain jobs in this game that are like playing a xylophone upside down.
Yeah.
They need to, like, if anything needs to be homogenized, it's the amount of button clutter on the screen.
I'm worried about that with, like, as we go to 90, though. Like, one of the things that we see with the early game where people, like, who don't like when we are critical, we're not negative, we're critical, in that regards. Like, critique is an important thing.
I love Summoner, for example. I love it.
But it's like in the early game, like I'm like, we need to bring more skills or like off the go cooldowns sooner, because when I go right now, like when I was playing ARR, it was fun. When I go to ARR content now, I'm like, gosh, I miss so much. Like I don't know what that solution is. I just feel like I'm worried that if they take more of those skills off, that means that that gap between 1 to 50 is like,
we're getting new abilities. It means we're going to get some abilities pruned, and pruned means that somebody from a past level, right, some new player, or when you sink down, is going to have less abilities than we did it, right now, and it's not going to feel good. There are some jobs that just they lack their very essence, and they change a lot from 50 to 60 to 70 to 80. I'd love to see that addressed. As for like a warrior change, Warrior feels so different than the other 3 tanks to me. It really feels separated. And so my concern with people saying that like Warrior needs to be brought more in line is I hope that's not to just further homogenize tanks. I think Warrior does feel different than the other 3 to me. And I would love to see them lean further into that. Like for the gap close, for example, when I'm on inner release, shorten that cooldown so that I'm gap closing so that there's more off global, so that inner release really feels berserk. That's the early word for inner release. It feels berserk. It feels fast. And as I'm getting to I'm finally leveling up all these jobs that I've just ignored for years. And like when you're in Dancer and you trigger that like rapid little speed, or when you're on some of the melee jobs and you trigger these, like it's Ninja, good. The Mudra system, there's these moments where it's like sprint, sprint, sprint. And when you're in content where you're having to dodge right as you're like sprint, sprint, sprint on your rotation, you're like, but when you get out the other side, you're like, that was so fun. Let's do that again. Don't worry, in 90 seconds or 60 seconds or whatever the, the phase is, you'll get to. And so I like that pacing. And I would say, let's get Warrior further into that, where the Fell Cleaves are the metronome and there's more stuff going on in between. In E12, like my opener, there's a reprisal going off in some of those spots. Like in inner releases, there's a reprisal going out, and that makes the inner release feel even better because there's more going on, because I have set mitigation falling during my inner release window.
Absolutely. Now when it comes to Summoner, we were talking about like buttons and things like that. What would you want to see? Like you talked about the glamour and being able to kind of change your pets, but would you think that this would be a logical time to separate Summoner and Scholar?
Would it be feasible though? Like from a game, like a mechanical standpoint?
It'd be hard. It'd be hard, but they're doing that a lot of work on it. Like you have to sit here and, that's not something you just make a decision overnight on.
Does it need to be? That's the other question.
It feels like it already is. Like when we look at, Stormblood, like pets don't really do anything. Like the only thing that's really shared was their XP bar, and they have like one skill or something like that. And like the fairies are completely like homogenized and more. So at the end of the day, I just think if they're going to do something by introducing a new healer, that it, like what is Summoner's, what is Scholar's place? What is White Mage? What is Scholar? What is a Sage? And that's, I think, a good time to kind of bring it up. Chris, do you have a thought before we let Meoni talk?
I mean, they are moving us to having two types of healers instead of last expansion where like everybody can do everything. And that had some pros, right? We brought the skill floor way down for a lot of players so that the baseline to get into healing or tanking is in many ways lower than it's ever been, especially for like 4-man dungeon content. And when you pair it with the content, like a lot of these jobs are very, very attainable. You can do like Paladin, for example, you turn on your tank stance and you could literally just do the physical side of your abilities and not even know about how the magical side works. And you would still hold threat. And you would still finish the dungeon. Is it good? No, but you'd be fine. You would get the clear. And so like they've brought a lot of that way down. And so we will see the healers this time split into two. And so I kind of like that idea. I assume in 8-mans, you're going to be bringing one of each. So it does make those 8-man comps move closer to where you're seeing people like, oh, we want 2 melees and 2 ranged, and we want a shield healer and a direct healer. And then the Summoner Scholar thing, Mr. Happy did ask a question about like Aggie Glams, and the response was effectively, why would we add Glams if we were going to change it? But he didn't say that. He was like, I'm not saying we're going to change it, but why would I update glamours for a system that's going to change? So in the context of Scholar, I think that kind of poises us for hopefully more variety. What do you think, Meoni?
I think that it's too late to split them completely at this point. I don't think we'll probably ever see that. That's just my own cynicism. I'd love to see it. I'd love to see it otherwise, but I honestly don't see them spending any money on going, you know what, we're going to make that so that they're split off and they're two different quest lines and they're nothing to do with it. Nah, it's not going to happen now. In regards to your point, though, about healers, I don't know if I'm paraphrasing what you said, but you said to effectively that one will be specialized in one in the like direct healing and one will be in shielding. I don't think it will come down necessarily that hard. I think unless I wait to be corrected on this, but I don't think necessarily it's going to be as harsh as that. I don't think there will be a moment where it's like, we can't take 2 direct healers. I don't think the content will ever be in a situation where we can't take 2 shield healers. I don't think it really matters that much. I think it's blown out of proportion. I think that all they mentioned was that the general idea of the majority of where their focus is to focus more on the shields and stuff to accommodate so that you're not overlapping heals over time and you're not overlapping the amount of healing being overhealed. When you look at I hate to say it, but when you look at the pass of a fight, there's a ton of overhealing, and it's because basically the same abilities do the same thing. but I still think there will be the ability for a Sage to go in and totally be fine solo healing everything that required the direct healing that a White Mage would be required for.
Do you see,
for example,
more flexibility maybe coming in that, where it's like you would say, for example, that Sage and Scholar would be more on the shielding side, and where Astro and White Mage be maybe on the pure healing side, but there's flexibility built into that.
I think
people, because like
it's a lean, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's more of a lean rather than a full tilt that direction.
Right, like think 60-40 or 70-30, because like even Alan brings this up saying, like with the fairies, imagine one fairy kind of focusing more on shielding and then another fairy focusing in on regen. So literally, like as a player, you can go, oh, I'm with the White Mage, they got the regen covered, I'm going to double down on shielding. Oh, I'm with another Scholar. Let's see here. How about you do?
Like,
go ahead.
What they used to do with Astrologian, though, with Diurnal and Nocturnal, but there's not going to be a Nocturnal anymore.
Well, we understand. We know that for a factor is like, that's what I'm saying. Like if it's where we have that flexibility, like we said, 60-40.
Will we still have Nocturnal? That is the question.
I know, right?
That is the question. And how useful will it be? If we still have Nocturnal and it's the same percentage, then this is just buzzwords and they're still perfectly viable as a direct healer. Because I don't know, it just feels like as it stands right now in the game, we are homogenized as it is. I'm like you, I don't want to see any more jobs lean too far into anything. I don't want to be specialized as, oh, well, we can't take Meoni because we've already got an Astrologian. So why won't you bring me as a White Mage?
It's a balance. So you don't want it to be 4 of the same job and it's just a swap in glam and it's a chance to get 4 of the same relic. But you don't want it to be so far the other way that you can't bring people. So I think like a lot of it will also vary in the content. Early week Savage clears saying, hey, this is the comp that we found success with because it's taking advantage of all these classes. And I'm really excited to get in a party when I see a Scholar now because it means this for my job and the way they interact, I think has value. But to say at the same time, I want to go run a normal dungeon with Meoni, it should not matter what you're on. All the healers need to be able to blast through dungeons, blast through normal mode trials and raids, any combination. You queue in with roulette, it's fine. But when you talk about content that more traditionally is a party that's pre-arranged, the party finder system, we're going to pre-scope this in because we're trying to optimize. I think that's where homogenization starts to fall short, where you do want to kind of be able to bring the class, not the player.
Yeah, people focus too much on a meta that doesn't actually represent them in the slightest, as well as a general player base. That's something that we can definitely
I saw Svea Brave be good on Black Mage, so therefore I'm going to pick Black Mage.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, did you see one? What was it? The previous content, one of the world first raiders entered with a Red Mage, and people pulled so many faces, but suddenly Red Mage was the flavor of them. It's like, no, you don't understand. What you don't do as they do. Like, just stop trying to copy someone else. Like, it's not applicable to you. Oh, well, we can't take this for our 4-man Satasha run because of the group comp. It's like, it doesn't apply to you. It doesn't apply to you even at Savage mode unless you're going for the world first. World first is so different than a clear of a Savage content 4 weeks later. It is worlds apart. The world first is just like, what's the quickest way we can do this with the least amount of fail. That's all it comes down to.
With our player skill, right? And this exact group. And so there are ways people move and stuff that create all sorts of like sub-optimization for uptime or require some person to do something really technical with positioning that like the party finder strat adjusts heavily over the early weeks. Because it's just not the same as like what these statics are, where they're just trying to get it down once. And you see it anytime that a world first race, when you watch them clear the next week, it doesn't immediately just fall over because it's like, oh, like you also only had to clear it once. So if you got past the phase sloppy, that's good enough. Like move on.
Yeah, limit break 3 and good, you know.
It's good.
Red Mage jobs are good, and you know.
It's exciting to watch them play at that level, but it is a very different game. Than what the rest of us are playing. The tanks this expansion have been really close in damage, but technically, if you were to have a tool that could count the amount of damage you do, Gunbreaker technically comes out a little on top right now. And when I watch people doing all this stuff, people are like, how come there's no Gunbreaker in here? It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Now, I do want
Every
to say,
single job is useful at endgame. That's the thing I just wanted to quickly put in there.
Yeah.
There's no wrong answer when you go, I want to play red mage, I want to play dancer, I want to play black mage. It doesn't matter. If you know how to play that, it doesn't matter.
right,
You'll clear the content.
the player can take the job into the stratosphere. And then when you look at the meta, it ends up being like so small percentage wise that it's going to get adjusted, especially if it's something that's like, oh, there's clearly, you know, a clear disadvantage to X job. And if that X job happens to be black mage, they've done that over the course of every expansion. We see like every patch, like
it's rare though, isn't it? Like, well, very small increments.
It's the most interesting content people are obsessed about, to the point where they don't include job changes, adjustments, even to potencies until like when the patch goes live. They used to have them in pre-patch notes, and then everybody freaked out all weekend long. And then pre-patch notes and then patch notes, it's like, oh, they played, and people are like, oh, it actually feels better. Oh yeah, it actually, okay, makes sense because I wasn't factoring that this off the global cooldown actually boosts its potency. You know, it's like, and it ends up being like, yeah,
they used to show it in part 2 of the live letter. That's 2 full weeks before the patch. We used to get some job changes. And the world just and either everybody was exactly as happy as when the live letter started, or the world was on fire for 2 weeks. It never improved anything. We were always at net zero or worse. And so they're like, we're just not going to tell you about job changes in part 2 anymore. It's way better.
Theory crafting without access to a game to play is impossible. Like it's just, you're just going to end up fighting amongst yourselves for the entire weekend. It's much better when you just go, this changed. It's like, oh,
all right, okay, got it. Makes sense. Let's test it. Now, I do want to say thanks to Rurikon posting an epic comment saying, by the way, for all those of you watching on YouTube, did you know that if you hit the like button on this stream, your DPS of 14 increases by 20%? I love that
that's
guy.
huge. That's
huge
boost.
Boost. It's broken. You know, y'all got the black chocobo mount, and I get some kind of power to boost people.
You get the echo.
I get the echo. I grant echo with every like on the YouTube stream. So
wow,
I'll take my buff, my 14 power.